Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Mike Delisio.
I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
And I'm Z Garcia.
And we're taking a look at Radlands. If there's one thing Z hopes happens soon,
The apocalypse.
and not because Z wants the apocalypse to happen,
I
but
just want to play.
After the post, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. I want to play more games about it, and I think that would be good research.
Fair.
oh,
No
okay.
argument here.
That's really what it is. Yeah, it sounds awful.
You're writing it
but
off
the
as
games.
a business expense. All right, well, Radlands is a two-player card game. This is the box that it comes in, or you can get this deluxe box showing one of the villains from Mad Max.
Correct.
So good.
All right, so Mike is going to tell us how to play this game, and we'll be right back.
All right, so here we see a starting setup for a game of Radlands, and one thing I want to point out right off the bat is that you are looking at the deluxe edition of the game. The main distinguishing feature of this are these neoprene playmats. And so depending upon what edition of the game you see, whether it's a standard retail edition or this deluxe edition, it may or may not have playmats. The reason why I'm using them in this overview is that it does help with the organization, so you can clearly delineate the three columns here and the rows. All right, so Radlands is a dueling card game, a two-player dueling card game, where your end goal is to destroy the opposing player's three camps. These cards that you see right here are the starting camps for each player. The way it works is that you draw 6 of them out of a camp deck, you choose 3 out of the 6 that you want, and you place them on your bottom rows of these 3 columns. They're going to do a couple of things. They're going to give you some abilities on them. So for example, this mercenary camp, if you pay 2 water, you can do this ability here. But it also is going to have this number here at the bottom, which is going to determine the starting number of cards that you have. So for this player, 0, 0, and 1, they would actually only start with 1 card in their hand. That player happened to choose some camps that gave them 2 starting cards, so they would have those 2 starting cards to begin with. All right, the turn structure in Radlands is very, very simple. You're going to do the following things in order. First, there's an event phase, where you're going to resolve any events in your number 1 space and advance the rest. Then you're going to replenish, where you refill to 3 water and you draw a card. And then finally, you're going to take actions. Play a card, draw a card, junk a card, take the water silo, and use an ability. So, how this works is that at the beginning of the game, there are no events in either of the rows. So the events are listed right here. You have 3, 2, and 1. They're going to move forward as they happen. So for example, each player starts with this Raiders card that you can eventually bring out. And this starts on the number 2 region of the zone and is going to have an effect that triggers once it reaches the top. So let's say that this card at some point in the game was brought up here. At the very beginning, during the event stage, if there was anything in your 1 space, it would resolve. There's not. So then you would move this up. On the next turn, then, it would resolve, okay? And you can delineate events by that border. Let's see if I can find you another one here. Here's another event. This one's out of the main deck, and as you can see, it has that same kind of caution tape border there. This one starts in the number 1 spot, all right? Now, in a case like this, where there's already one in the 1 spot, you'd have to play it further back. But that's what happens during the events. Anything in the 1 spot triggers, and you move everything up. Then you replenish, you refill to 3 water, which we just got denoted down here, and you draw a card. But the main meat of the game is taking these actions, and these actions are going to be the things that allow you to play players here that can potentially do damage to opposing players and to essentially what you want to do, destroy their camps. So we'll go very quickly through these actions. To play a card, you simply are going to look at the water cost in the upper left there and pay that much money to put the card out. Now, right now, I happen to have 2 very expensive cards. I couldn't even play Bombardment right now because it takes 4 water. If this was really the beginning of the game and I was the first player, I would actually only start with 1 water. But after that, it's 3 water for each player. So let's just assume that we have that. So, couldn't play Bombardment. I could play Vera Vosh here, which costs 3 water, but has a trait down here at the bottom. All right. It also has an effect that can happen, and it has a junk effect. So there are a number of different cards. It's a very large shared deck that people are choosing from. Let's say, for example, like this Muse is a pretty simple one. This would cost 1 water. It has a 0 effect of getting an extra water. So I could play this out here. I play a water. Now, when cards are first placed, they are not ready. If they have an ability, that ability is not ready right away unless it says specifically that it does, okay? Typically, when a card comes out, it is not ready. Also, there's an idea of being protected or unprotected. So right now, both of these camps are unprotected. There's no cards in front of them. This scavenger camp has the Muse protecting it in front of it, and so if this column got targeted, the Muse would take the damage first before the camp would, unless there was something specific on the card that said otherwise. Another thing you can do is you can draw a card. Here, it costs 2 water. You can place it right there, and then you draw a card, and you have it for later. Another thing you could do is you could spend 1 water to get a water silo into your hand. This is basically a way later on to junk this card to get an extra water. So it's basically paying 1 water now to get an extra water later. These extra waters are denoted with these black water tiles that work essentially the same way. All right, so you can play a card by spending the water, and then you're going to have it in your area ready to do some potential actions, effects, damage, etc. Another thing you can do is you can, I already mentioned draw a card, you can also junk a card. So in the upper left of these cards are going to be a number of symbols, all right? And most of them are going to be referenced on the back of your player aid card here, all right? So there are certain things that you can do. If cards get damaged, they typically will get tapped, turned onto their side, meaning that any abilities they have are no longer active, and they are also now 1 damage away from getting destroyed, which is removed, all right? If a card is damaged like that, and you play a restore junk action, you can rotate it upright. Now, it won't be ready this turn, but it'll now have 1 more damage on top of it again. You can draw cards potentially. You can gain extra waters. You can gain a punk. Punks are simply just drawing a card blindly off the top of the deck and being played, and it has no ability, and it only has 1 damage. So if it takes any damage at all, it's gone. It doesn't tap. It just goes back onto the top of the deck. But it basically will help protect some of your other cards. Okay, so you can gain a punk that way. And raid allows you to either, that's a way to get your Raiders card. So let's say that your Raiders card was not out there yet, and maybe you had this card in your hand, this holdout card, that has a raid effect. You could just junk this card to get your Raiders out onto the board. If it was already there, you can then do it to advance it. All right, so you could play another card with that and advance it up. All right, so these are all of the different types of junk effects that you can have on your card. You can injure, so some of them just have straight injure junk abilities here, which basically means if it is a person, you can damage it if it's if it's not protected. In this case, it wouldn't. It would destroy this. If you played a junk effect and you chose that column, that could destroy that punk right there. All right? You'll also have abilities on cards that you can play. You'll be going back and forth like this, drawing cards, playing cards, resolving events, potentially using the abilities on these different cards with the overarching goal of destroying all 3 of your enemy's camps. The first player to do that will win the game of Radlands. Let's head back over and let you know what we think about it.
All right. Now, we have 2 copies here on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Which one should people buy?
I don't know what the price difference is. That's a big deal. Okay, so this in here is really just this, pretty much.
Oh, you
and
can see
2
it.
playmats.
It actually, that box is in there.
Well, it's a
right.
different
Well, not
box.
quite.
yeah.
Okay,
Magnetic
so
closure.
That is an upgraded one, right?
technically,
Yeah.
this is a Kickstarter thing with the cards being a different quality, plastic tokens, things like that, and this one then has regular cards that aren't plastic. They're linen finished though, very nice. And then just cardboard tokens for these. No playmat, obviously.
This is the deal here, though.
I
is the
think
play
it's-
mat.
Well, that's what I'm
I think this is good. I think this is fine, but then if you find yourself wanting or kind of almost needing the playmat, they're
Right.
pretty good playmats for positional sort of, considerations. Then you can get those on their website.
Right.
On just by themselves. So
That's my biggest issue. Is I feel like, and you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
There are certain games that have playmats that are nice, right? They're nice playmats, good quality, but they don't serve a huge functional purpose. Especially with card-driven games, a lot of times they're just something nice to put your cards on. I really do feel like these playmats help significantly with visualizing the game, because there is a positional aspect to it. You've got the columns and rows, you've got the events that have to cycle forward,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're not going to be going into a spot right behind another one, so you have to kind of visualize, is that in spot 1 or 2? And I really feel like the playmats are almost essential in this game.
okay. I mean, I think I largely agree with that.
It's close. I'm not sure. I think they're. I won't play without them, so I guess
Right,
that's
yeah, that's what I was
that.
gonna say. Is I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
It will not hit the table
Yeah.
as often without them.
Right.
Again, it just visually sets up that field, helps keep it organized, helps with the flow of the game. It's just, it's much more fluid with them, and I wouldn't play without them.
It's a good teaching tool.
It
Also.
is.
Right? Yes. Yeah.
Now, we joked at the beginning, or not joked, I guess you really do like Apocalypse theme, but what did you all think about the theme? Is it in the game? Is it strong?
Go ahead.
Okay,
you
I
go.
think so very much. I mean, each of the different cards, when you have the different characters that come out, they kind of play into that. They have some theme, whether it's. I'm trying to think of one that's not gruesome here. Let me see that real quick.
I like that's the first thing that comes to your mind.
Radiation,
yeah.
There's like a blood bank one where you're like, draining blood and stuff. But anyway, yeah, there's like radiation, or there's a sniper, and so they really are playing into that. You have a camp and you're protecting it, and so you're trying to maximize your resources with these different cards that you're playing, and the cards' powers do fall in line with whatever character is on that card as well. If you're into that, I really am into that theme integration. So I definitely found the theme very well integrated and very well represented in the different cards.
Yeah, I guess I didn't necessarily get that experience. I'm sure it's there. I wasn't looking for it that way. I was more just appreciative of the art and the aesthetic.
Yeah.
I feel like I like this look, I like this theme, and I think the game does a good job of evoking that through a very consistent and vibrant art style. I think that helps. I don't feel like it's non-thematic by any means, but I didn't necessarily feel this, connection of, these camps, this particular camp, this salvage yard really does what I would expect a salvage
Wow.
yard to
See,
do.
I agree with Camilla. I felt really strong
I wasn't
on the
looking
themes.
for it, though. I think that's the thing, is I wasn't looking for it.
And the other thing for me, you said you agree with that, and the scarcity of stuff also is a big part of it for me.
That I
That's
agree
true.
with.
You have 3 water.
Yeah.
Everything is going to take that. So it's like this turn, I can only accomplish a few things.
Yes.
Your cards, managing your cards, everything. And you feel like you're scraping by in this post-apocalyptic setting. That rings right to me.
Yeah.
It sort of works for what I'm looking for in this kind of game.
By the way, as a side note, that water mechanism where you pick up a card, you buy that card for 1 water, and then you have an extra water using a future turn. Very smooth way of just saying you can save one to the next turn.
Right.
Right.
Great.
Yes.
And I
very
don't
much so.
forget because the card's in my hand.
I
Right.
agree. That's
And
the
what
way
I
to do
like
it.
on that, so to that point that there's this scarcity of things, scarcity of resources, and you're trying to really maximize it and stuff. But because of that water mechanism and some the multi-use cards and stuff, there's always something you can do. And I really liked that. I really felt in that 2-player game where you're going head-to-head like that, it never feels good to have that turn where you're like, I guess I'm just going to draw a card and see what I can do next time. You never have that. There's always something you can do. Whether it is just bank the water for next turn, or whether it is use that multi-use card just to bring your raid card into your hand. So it's
Put it out
difficult.
there.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you. There's difficult decisions, but there's always a decision to make, or always at least something to do. I never had a wasted turn in any of my plays.
Yeah, and it has that feeling of so many things kind of feel overpowered that then nothing is, right? It's this idea of every time the opponent drops a character and you're like, you can do what?
Right.
Well, they're feeling the same way towards the things you're doing, you got this camp that can just blow something up for a cup of water, and you can. So everything is for 1 or 2 water. Something insanely powerful happens.
Right.
And I like that. There isn't a lot of, we're not going through the stage now where we're taking it easy and eventually things get big and grandiose and bombastic. It pretty much starts there.
Right.
Because the game's not that long and everything feels powerful.
Yeah, it also has the thing of when you have a powerful card that you're putting out there, first of all, it's going to get your opponent's attention. Then it becomes a target, right? It's very much going to be like, I'm not going to allow my opponent to spam this card that's going to wreck me turn after turn. One of the issues, and I don't know, I'd probably have to play the game more to know if it really is going to play out this way, but I mentioned this to you after we first played it. I don't know how I love the notion of I'm paying 3 or 4 water to get this very powerful character out there on the board, and it can't do what it's supposed to do. It doesn't come out ready. I'm sure that there is a very solid mechanical reason behind that, but it does. I have to tell you, there are a couple of times it felt kind of deflating to me. It's like, I'm spending 4 water on this character. There's a very real chance I'm never even going to be able to activate this character.
So
Yeah.
this comes down to what I was going to just say. This feels like a collectible card game. And how it plays.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's part of them for almost all of them.
And,
Yes.
and I typically bounce off those type of games, and that's why I think my view of this is going to be different than you who likes some of these collectible, and I think you like some of them too.
Do, yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
sure how you feel about them, but I don't typically like these kind of games, and it does have that feel.
Yeah, it does.
That's okay. So my favorite part of the game is before you start picking which
The
3 of
camps.
those camps you're going to use, because it feels like you're picking your special powers for the game.
Yes.
And you're not picking 1, you're picking 3, so you have this kind of. It's going to be unique every game.
It's also really smart to tie in the starting number of cards you have to those 3 camps.
I also like that because
really
that's
like that
a
lot,
great
right.
thing.
That's very cool.
It's a hard decision right off the bat.
Yeah.
Do I want this really great camp that gives me no
No
starting
cards,
hand?
yeah.
Right. And so, no, I
Yeah,
love that. I
that's
love
smart.
it right out of the gate. You're
But
making a
happily,
good
the rule
decision.
book gives you the 3 to start with if you've never
It
played
does,
before,
yeah.
which is a good move because I
What?
would have been like, I don't know what to pick.
Yeah. I think my favorite part, I like a lot of this game. I like the fact that every card you can get rid of it to trigger, just junk it, I think they call it,
Yep.
for the symbol in the corner. Sometimes you draw a card and it's like, this is no good to me right now.
Right.
But that corner will do something useful, even if it's just discard the card to draw another one. Some cards that are very situational let you cycle them out. They cycle themselves. You can just chuck it and draw another one. I really like that. I like that then you don't end up with a lot of sort of dead draws, right? You don't draw a card and go, this isn't useful at all. You can do something with it. So that's neat.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Absolutely.
And I misjudged the importance of those junk actions when I was playing, because I tended to look at those cards and feel like the best use of that card was its action. It's not always the case.
Yeah, it
It's
might not fit
always the
right
case.
now,
It may
yeah.
not synergize
Right.
with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I think I was, midway through my first game before I started even realizing, man, I really should be junking some of these cards. So
Right.
it is a cool mechanism.
Yeah, because to touch on your point before about having those really powerful cards, I think in both of my plays, I did that. I got one of those 3, 4 water cards out there. And I couldn't even get to the point that it was ready to play it. It was destroyed,
Yeah.
before, and I didn't have any healing in order to
Right.
heal it or ready the card or anything like that. And like you said, that doesn't feel good. And so, as we go on, kind of learning, okay, yeah, 3 probably going to be a target, not really a camp I need to protect. So, all right, we're going to go with the junk action because
Right.
it'll be great to get that raid card out or to advance my raid, whatever that action is.
Yeah.
So definitely have, again, back to that interesting decision of, am I going to be able to protect the card or ready
Right.
it if they do attack it? So.
Yeah, they're very rare, to be fair. There's one cost 4 water card. There's one in the entire deck. There's 2, actually. One's an event, and one's a person. And then 3, there's a few of them.
Right.
Almost no cards have that cost. So
Interesting.
almost everything's 1 and 2, 1 and 2. I also really like putting an event into play and forcing your opponent to watch it count down.
Yeah.
Yes. But, or even better,
That's great.
Or like they don't know because you might be holding that card and be like watching it count. Just kidding, it's now. Because you have that card to advance it as well. So it's a little bit of that mind game, too. Like they don't know that you're gonna. Yeah, I like that a lot.
All right, Mike, what's your final thoughts here?
So, again, I want to put this in the context of who I am as a gamer. I'm not really tend to be into these collectible card game feel type games, and this is definitely one of those. But this is a really clever design. It does a lot of things very well. I understand the cleverness of it. I understand the appeal of it. It's not a game that I'm going to come back to and play very often because it's not my style of game. It's going to get a 7 for me because I think that if
That's
I'm
still pretty good.
Yeah,
man.
because if I'm going to play a game like this is going to be at the top of the list. It's, Blue Moon is another one that I like that has this feel, but there's not many out there that I like. This is one that I like, and it's one that I feel like gets its point through quickly. Right? It doesn't get hidden behind a lot of junk. It's a very streamlined rule set. True. Get to it, get playing, and you're into the meat of it right away. So a 7 for me, a solid game.
Nice. This one, I kind of went through a whole gambit of emotions as I was playing it. Again, like you said, this is not really my type of game either.
Yeah.
I don't like that direct, I win by destroying you down to nothing. It's like this whole push-pull, like who destroys who the best, or at the right precise moment. And so it's not usually my kind of game. But so another point on my top 10 art of the year, I want to say 5 or 6 people recommended this one. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, absolutely right up my style. So I was in there because the theme, gave it a shot, and there was one precise moment in my first play where I played that 3 water card and it was destroyed the next turn, and I was like raging, like rage.
It hurts. It hurts.
So,
Was it you who killed it?
no, it wasn't. It was. Are you serious right now?
Oh, it was me?
It was absolutely you.
I
I'm
taught
raging
both of you.
again.
You did.
And I played with you. Yeah, so,
All right.
okay.
Anyway, but then I think, as I was going through it, that was very early game, kind of adapted my style and realized that, back to your point, that if every card is overpowered, and every card broken, if you will, then the game works. And I really, really am glad that I came back a second time because I very much enjoyed the game. I'm going to give it an 8, which is very high for me for this kind of game, I think. But yeah, I definitely would play it again in a heartbeat. It's something that, I would pick up anytime someone offers to play.
You want to go or should I go?
I think you might be higher than me, so we'll see.
I don't know. I'll go in. I'm coming in at a 9.
Oh, okay. Well, no, you're definitely higher than me.
Yeah, okay. I'm coming
9
in
is
at a
pretty
9.
strong.
Yeah.
You were really pumped about this to begin with.
I was. Everything here clicks for me. I do like this sort of the punk look, the futuristic, post-apocalyptic neon punk thing. 2 players, CCG-like, kind of like a collectible card game. It's got to try hard to kind of let me down, at that point. And it's so clever and, in a way, minimalistic. Manages to be minimalistic, yet give me big feels. That's a nice trick that it pulls off. Yeah, I really like it. 9.
All right. Well, I'm at an 8. Although it's hovering right below an 8.5 for me because I do like those collectible card games in the past. I like the tactical grid, fighting the other person. I love the one card in there that's just a giant. It's like the cities from that.
Well, it moves up.
Yeah. The one,
I had somebody throw one of that at me, and it messed me up pretty bad.
it's hard.
Yeah.
But I like it. I love that whole tension that you watch the thing just coming at you. And you're like, come on.
That's good.
But I also like the multi-card play. And it's really simple and clean. It is not a complex game. It's fast, and if you lose, you're like, shuffle it up. Let's play something. Let's play it again. Let's play a different collection. So there you go. That's Radlands. Check it out and prepare yourself for the apocalyptic future.
So many good designs are going to be coming your way. Can't wait.
Anyway, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Mike Delicio.
I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
I'm Z Garcia.
Have fun prepping.